Good afternoon and welcome to your daily support call. My name is Marcus from How To Project. Today, we're very fortunate to have with us my friend Mike Reid, co-founder of Dent Global. Mike, can you give us a bit of an introduction to you?
I can. Hey team, and hey guys, thanks for listening in. So look, really brief background. You can hear I'm Australian. So I moved to Canada about 12 months ago from Australia. And in terms of what I do for our business, we run a business accelerator company. We've been operating for nearly 10 years in Australia, in the UK, and Singapore, and Tampa, Florida. And we work with traditional service-based small business owners to help them build their brand, help them grow and scale through a 12-month program. The one we're most known for is called the Key Person of Influence Accelerator, which is based around a book called Key Person of Influence. And yeah, so that's what we do. And I've been doing that in Australia for the last 8 or 9 years. I fell in love with a Canadian. That's what brought me to Canada. And so I've been setting up a chapter for the business here ever since.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And I can't believe you said 12 months ago. Has it really almost been a year since you and I met? Like
Yeah, I
that's
know.
wild. Yeah.
I've been in Canada a little bit longer, but the business has only been set up for 9 months here. And yeah, so I'd say we probably met about, 8 or 9 months ago, Marcus.
That's wild because it still feels like yesterday for me, like so fresh. So yeah, so thank you for that. And Dent is known for its quality of brand because, of course, if you're going to be all about branding, you have to have a good brand, good influence, et cetera, et cetera. I admire a lot of the work you do. We've talked about this. We've done a few things together, talked ideas together, and I love everything that you guys do. Just the quality of production is amazing. You do a lot of live events for intake. You have live in-person group sessions. That's a lot of the business model. And you'll notice, of course, I'm emphasizing the word live because much like what we've been doing with our workshops, all of that just disappeared overnight. So give me a little bit of not history, but insight to where things were for you as you were peaking here. I mean, like you said, you just started up in Toronto about a year ago. So you're finally getting some traction, finally getting that key person of influence mentality going. And then boom, what was that like? And where are you now?
Yeah, I wish I was going to joke and say we've invested heavily in hazmat suits and we're gonna press on. No, it was definitely, look, caught the world by surprise, obviously caught us by surprise too. And it was funny because you were right. We just got to the end of this kind of 9 months and we were really in a really good rhythm and flow. We had a big launch event in September last year and we had about 150 entrepreneurs come along to that event, which you were there for. And that kicked us off. And then we built a small team here in Canada and we'd had our first program, our first group of clients start in November last year, and that was continuing to grow, and it still is of course, but we were really just getting into a good rhythm and pulse, and we just planned out our events for the next 12 months where, we had a really successful event last month at the start of March, just before the world exploded or imploded. And then off the back of the success of that, we're like, great, let's really sort of build this rhythm and pulse into our sales and marketing rhythm for the next year or so. And so we'd planned that all out and, set some dates and spoken to some venues and then COVID came along and so that really threw a spanner in the works. So, certainly at the beginning of the process, I was, I think like everybody, I was expecting that, this is probably a little shock that would stick around for a month or a couple of months and we'd be back to normal after that. But as we're quickly finding out, there is a bit of a new normal that's going to take place for whatever it is the next couple of years or year or two, or I don't know, whatever the prediction is. But so we're shifting a lot of our things to online delivery and to web classes. But from an emotional standpoint, I was really lucky, Marcus, where we had a great event, at the start of March that sort of gave us a good bit of runway for the next few months. So and also we're a very lean team. We'd started the business here 9 months ago. We were already a very lean business. And so, one of the things that we were advising clients is to, kind of strip back to the core of, reset back to the core of what they do remove some of the distraction and the noise and the clutter, and just kind of really streamline operations and your business back to what you do best. And so that might look like, removing some, getting rid of potentially some team that are, weren't sort of needed for that kind of new normal, or, in a worst case scenario, or it's, just cutting back other costs and whatever else it may be. And, for me, we were already very lean. So that kind of meant that I didn't put a huge amount of focus into that. Really, my focus has just been on how do we now, continue to attract, more business and new business in this new paradigm, and kind of switch our both our sales and marketing and our delivery model to virtual, and still continue to deliver on our promise in all the same ways, or if not, hopefully even more remarkable ways. And the final thing I'll say is that this has really demonstrated to me more than anything that ultimately, all people care about is getting to a destination. They just want to get to a particular outcome or a result, and the mechanism to get there is less important. So, where our old paradigm was really built around, we had to do things face to face for them to get to that end result, we're realizing that perhaps we can get them there in just the same way with, some online delivery for the time being, and we're all forced to do that. So it's forcing us to go, how do we get them there in the same way, or an even more remarkable way, with less face-to-face? And we're realizing that, our old paradigm wasn't necessarily the only paradigm, and that in this kind of new paradigm, we're pretty confident we can deliver the same sort of result and the same outcomes we're known for.
Wow, so much to unpack there. So let's start looking at that. So I like some of the things you said. So first of all, yeah, we've talked. I've been so blessed doing this show every day during the pandemic. I've had different industry experts, everything from medical to finance and banking to political to. It's been amazing, some of the things I've learned in the process of doing this. And from early on, when we started doing this show, only like 3-4 weeks ago, there's no short term to this. What the experts were saying even weeks ago, like the Canadian Minister of Health, was this is going to go quarantine for 9 to 12 months, depending on how much we all actually do what we're supposed to be doing. And we're seeing that we're not doing what we're supposed to be doing. So of course, that's where we're going to end up hitting that 9 to 12 month mark. And the longer it goes on, then the longer it's going to take the economy to recover, for things to normalize, is the phrase I've been using, like that new paradigm you talked about, because there is no going back. And there never was before. That's just not how we're wired. So I love that you talked on that, because it's not something where we can stick our head in the sand, think it's going to be gone in a month or two, and then just go back to the way things were, because it has been a fundamental shift. If you've ever studied the work of Michael Gerber in the E-Myth, which most entrepreneurs have, he divides things into culture and systems equals business. And what I find really fascinating, I'm a systems guy. Our company is a systems company primarily. And what I find really fascinating is people that have systems in place, much like yourself, much like us, much like some other successful businesses. When you have those lean, efficient systems and processes where you're constantly testing, constantly measuring, and able to react quickly to things that change, then that component is solid. And you would be in the same boat where we might be, where the culture shock has hit, because suddenly the dynamics of how we leverage those systems has changed. So that's only half of what some companies are going to, that don't have the systems in place, right? That don't have the structure in place. So now the work culture shock is still there, and they don't have the systems to support it. So they're in twice the predicament than companies that are doing well. I was alluding to this, you and I were talking just before the call, about how it's been interesting as I'm studying a lot of the principles that you teach, the principles that we teach, things that are proven and tested by other minds long before ours. We just put our own flavor on them. And what's interesting to me is what I found is a lot of the principles still apply. For example, we just said test everything, right? The data is all askew. A lot of the marketing initiatives we've been doing, we're getting different results. Some things we're getting, equal results for less money, which you had talked about. Other things are just falling flat that used to work. And then things that never used to work suddenly are working really well. So it's the principles still apply of test everything, iterate, run lean. really what
Mm.
I've seen is the companies that are pivoting and transitioning successfully, they've just reduced the time frame. You don't have that luxury of waiting for a month to see if your ad's
Mm.
doing well. It's like, did it do well in these 3 days? No. Okay, what are we going to do to shift it over?
Mm.
How have you found your underlying principles? Obviously, they're still serving your clients, but how have you found it been in regards to your data and working with your clients? Like, where are they at?
Hmm. So yes, really great points, Marcus. We created the key person of influence methodology off the back of the 08-09 recession.
Mhm.
So Dent was founded in 2010, early 2010. The methodology was really developed off the back of that recession. So it kind of developed in a time where, for good times or for bad, what we noticed was every industry had an inner circle, and so what that inner circle of players were doing well was building their brand, raising their profile. They were showing up as much more visible leaders. They were sharing thought leadership. They had productized their intellectual property, that kind of thing. So the method that we take our clients through, we feel has been timeless over the last decade. It's not like we've been teaching a different approach to growing and scaling a traditional service-based small business in the last decade. It's been the same consistent principles, underlying principles. And I think in a time like this, when the world comes along and the universe throws a big spanner in the works, that it's important not to throw the baby out with the bathwater and not to forget the timeless principles. And what we teach our clients, and the systems and the structure and the frameworks we take them through on how to communicate their value, how to get clear on their value, how to pitch it effectively, how to unpack their ideas and their insights and their thought leadership, and how to productize their value. Those principles remain the same, but
Mhm.
what they're doing and what's important to do is really adapt how they're messaging what they're doing to be able to meet the current needs and the current challenges of their market, as opposed to the challenges or the problems of yesterday.
Right.
And that's something that the approach, the method, the framework by which they're unpacking their IP and positioning themselves and communicating their thought leadership, all of that remains the same. But what they're talking about today is different to what they would have talked about a month ago. And so for I think for many businesses that may be listening, where you have a product or service that would be valuable to solve a problem for someone based on a current challenge they're facing, and it would have been just as valuable to solve a challenge as a month ago, but the way you communicate that value proposition really needs to change to meet people's needs today. And you need to be able to show how, or position how, your business, your product, your service, is the vehicle they need today to be able to navigate the challenge they've got today. If that makes sense.
Right. No, it absolutely does. I mean, and you're right. That is like one of the fundamental principles of marketing, is always make your messaging relevant to what's going on in the world around you. And right now, nothing's more relevant than COVID-19.
Mm.
Of course, there's also the degrees of ethics to that, the love story versus the fear story. How far do you go either way? And I don't know if you've noticed it, but every day I almost dread opening my inbox, because 99% of the emails are about COVID, and a lot of them are fear mongering. It's not the, how to survive in during a pandemic. It's not the ways to pivot your business. We're here for you type of emails. It's like, your business is dead if you don't do these 5 things today. And it's like, really? Like, right? So, there's still ethics within marketing. I even heard a story from one of my students about someone who was doing door-to-door sales because they knew everybody would be home. And it was a roofing company that was so desperate just to chase the cash to survive, which I get, that they were like, wow, I got to go to every single door and knock. And, that's dangerous. It's short-sighted. It's not good branding.
Mm.
That's
Mm.
not the influence you want to be known for.
Mm.
So we've seen different reactions to how to pivot your marketing, how to change your message, how to refine it for what's going on in this world. One of the guests we had, she really nailed it, I think. And she talked about how what we're going through are the stages of grief. And some people are still stuck in denial. Some people are still stuck in anger. Some people are stuck in the sadness. And then there's those that have quickly accepted it and been able to successfully pivot into the new paradigm. Because, like you said, the principles are the same, just some of the tools are different. Some of the urgency might be a little different. Some of the comfort is gone, which is always a good thing, really, when it comes to learning new things, is being uncomfortable. So for our students, for example, most of them have successfully pivoted, but there are still some that are stuck in that first stage of grief. They're in denial. They think that it's going to be okay, that the government will take care of us, that, you know, it's going to resolve itself in the next month and they'll just get back to business as usual. And what I think that means is that they're losing that influence they've worked so hard for. They've lost that market recognition with their clients, because while everybody else is supporting in some way, even if it's not related to your business, just support each other some way so that you can stay top of mind and let people know that you're still sincerely a human being. So what kind of techniques have you been sharing with your students to help them transition through this?
So I'm a big believer in consistency, and I really believe that over time and distance, the more consistent you are with the marketplace, and more authentically consistent you are with, you know, your message, your brand, who you are. And especially I think in a time like this, Marcus, when, you know, there's just this huge kind of upheaval in the market and people's minds, and everyone's kind of running around like a headless chicken trying to figure out what to do next. That I think, you know, not throwing the baby out with the bathwater around your core value proposition, you know, what you're best at, you know, how you solve problems for people. You know, while there is a bit of a temporary glitch in the matrix, like things are going to kind of come back online in the next 6, 12, 18, 24 months. And yes, it will be a bit of a new normal and all that kind of thing. But, you know, maybe I've seen some people or businesses have tried to just jump on the opportunity, and it's you know, being opportunistic around an event like this, I don't think is the right approach, but you know, being a source of wisdom and inspiration and insight to be able to navigate the challenge and show how, you know, your brand, your business, your product or service can be the strength and the vehicle that's going to help people to move through that, whatever it is that you do, then I think that's a authentic and congruent way to brand it and position it. There's 2 key words that we've been using with our clients to get them to think about what we're going through. And, you know, if you imagine if we were to look at the stock market and look at the stock market over the previous 20 or 30 years, you would notice that there is a slow, gradual incline in terms of growth over typically a 7 to 12 year period. That's the typical kind of boom cycle. And then when a recession comes along, you know, in 08 or 09, or the recession in the early 2000s, it's generally a precipitous fall over the course of about 1.5 years to 2 years was the last 2 prior recessions in terms of the equity markets falling. And so, you know, if you imagine the shape of that graph, or the shape of that curve, is, you know, we're currently going through what I'd call a reset phase, where as the market, you know, has kind of gotten inflated and you know, COVID's come along and, you know, caused the world to go into a tailspin, and you know, that there's an element of market impact relating to COVID itself, but then there's also we were getting to the point of the end of a cycle, of a boom cycle. And so, you know, it's from my standpoint, I feel it's highly likely that we're going to enter a recession. It's going to be a fairly sort of, you know, long and protracted recession is my prediction. But I see that as a reset phase, which is all really about going back to the core of what are you great at? What are you best in world at? What's the one thing that if you were to strip your business back to the essence of what's the one thing we can be best in world at, or we do best, and to maybe ignore some of the other distractions or the other products or the other markets or the other things that you were thinking about doing or experimenting with, and just going back to where do we deliver the most value to the most people in the most remarkable way, and just really stripping operations and everything back to the core of that one thing. That's what, to me, the reset phase is all about. The reinvention phase is how we come out of that dip. And, you know, I think to your point before, if if someone's sitting there really, deer in a headlights, kind of a little bit paralyzed, not quite sure what to do, it's likely that reset phase is going to be a pretty long and deep and painful reset phase. Whereas if we can kind of, as you say, acknowledge where we're at, go through that grieving process in a reasonably speedy kind of way, and then get proactive, right? Get on the offensive as opposed to the defensive, and use this as an opportunity to go, hey, this could actually be the event that forces us to. What if it was the event that forced us to build the business of our dreams?
Right.
What if we flip the paradigm from how do we just not survive through this, but what if this event forced us to innovate and reinvent how we're doing things, that it could actually like get rid of a bunch of the things we didn't like about the way the business was designed before? And what does this new world create in a way where it's like, how could it turn into the business of our dreams? And so, a lot of that's going to look like, how do we deliver more stuff digitally? How do we turn more of our intellectual property into digital assets and things that help deliver value in a digital way, in a scalable way? How do we serve clients where we don't necessarily have to meet with them for them to get the same result or the same transformation? These are all the things that we're thinking about with our business model. We've very much been in an event-driven business model to date, and we've always believed and worked on the paradigm that we must meet people face to face for them to get the same level of transformation. That we never believe that someone could go through an online course and really become a key person of influence in the remarkable way that we've done so consistently with 3,000 companies around the world. If we just gave them all the answers in an online course and went, here you go through it, 90% of them wouldn't do it. And so that was our old paradigm. And so we felt we had to meet them face to face. Whereas now we're seeing that, okay, because everyone's forced to do a lot more stuff online, that the feedback scores we're getting, and the way we're delivering our workshops as web classes and all this kind of stuff, and what we're seeing from people who are in a similar space to us who are doing the same thing, is that there's a real hunger and a thirst for, and also there's an ability to deliver these things through technology now, where you can have an amazing studio setup and essentially create like a televised type experience as a training company or as a learning institution or a learning company. And so I was part of something the other day where this event management company was hosting an event with 1,200 people on a Zoom call, and they had a whole studio set up, and it was literally like I was watching TV on my iPad. It was remarkable. And it just totally, for me, it broke this old paradigm of, wow, I could sit here in the comfort of my own home, be fully connected to the people watching. It's, television quality type audio and audio visual, and there's roaming cameras, and there's all these other people on there. And it just completely broke the old paradigm of we had to do this in a live experience, that in actual fact it is possible to do it online. And so for me, that's what that reinvention phase looks like for our business. For our clients, we're encouraging them to think about a similar thing, which is ultimately all that your market care about is getting to a particular result or an outcome or a destination. And however you get them there, right, there's many different paths that could lead to Rome. But just remember, they don't care about the pathway or the mechanism as much as they care about getting to the destination. And so just reverse engineer that.
No, I love everything you're saying, and I actually like that term, reset and reinvent. That's it really sums it up nicely. You touched on some other ideas that I can't help but agree with and expand on. We teach about the 5 challenges of business scalability, and one of those is definitely innovation. If what you're doing becomes stagnant, then something like this happens and you're no longer relevant, and staying relevant is how you keep your value proposition up, as you know. So I love that you touched on that. You also touched on proactive versus reactive, and I at the beginning of every call I say I'm not going to talk about this today, and yet every single day it seems to come up, is obligation versus opportunity. we are in such an amazing position of now limitless opportunities, right? There's so many new ways of doing things. Last time even we looked at seriously getting online, which was only a couple of years ago, the technology was very different. To your point, there's so many more things you can do. The way society's been forced to change suddenly, yeah, there's a lot more uptake for these kind of things. People want it. They are starting to understand the value of what these things are more than ever before. And at the end of the day, I don't think what we're seeing is the death of the old way of doing things. I mean, eventually things will normalize. Maybe live events will be a thing still. Maybe they won't. I'm pretty sure they will. But at the end of the day, I think really what we're seeing is the demise of the traditional rat race, that old 9 to 5 mentality where you commute for 2 hours, just totally tired, work your day, and then come back totally tired, do whatever you have to do with the kids, fall into bed and do it all over again. And I think a lot of large corporations, not just small businesses, I mean, their leases are their biggest expense.
Mm.
And now that you're getting these large organizations, for the most part, set up to be working from home with their distributed teams, working with companies like ours to develop that work culture, whether it's remote or in person, to start to see how running lean can be really, really efficient and rewarding for the employees. I don't think you're going to see a lot of these larger companies coming back for those massive, expensive buildings because they can increase their profitability this way, getting more from their team, having everyone work from the home that they love anyway. There's going to be a really interesting aftermath to all of this to see how the giants in any industry start to lead the pack. And yeah, I mean, we've been testing all kinds of new ideas. Some of them have worked really well already. Some of them fell flat. But that's what you do. You just keep testing. You keep looking for new ways to innovate based on what the value is of your clients. And I'll share one with you right now, just so people have a really practical example. In the last 2 weeks, we took our traditional teaching people how to do Facebook ads live event, right? We'll walk you through the process of setting up an event, teach you how to do your event. And then of course the offer is, hey, if you're still not comfortable, we can do this with you, or for a higher fee, we can just do this for you. And boom, now we're running your Facebook ads. Suddenly that's not as much value because some businesses that might have known their client avatar, maybe never really knew their client avatar, maybe they're not even in the same industry anymore and they've had to shift really quickly. We now have the same workshop, but the focus is different. So now it's a workshop where we leverage the Facebook ads algorithm to get you to let them tell you who your client avatar is within a 3-day ad campaign. And we've been getting tremendous results just showing people how to really mine the data. So then now they know who their avatar is. Cool. Now we can market your new idea, your new business, your transition, whatever it is. And there's been massive demand for that because everybody's about pivoting and transitioning right now. So yeah, it's taking existing ideas and delivering them with a new and meaningful value. What we started talking about at the beginning, right? With marketing basics. So that's awesome. We've talked about a lot of those things. Obviously, there's a lot on your guys' plate, much like many of us. There's some businesses that I know aren't doing so well, so feel free. What I'm going to do, Mike, is I'm going to have your links, anything you provide to me after the call. We'll make sure people have a way of reaching out to you. I've read the Key Person of Influence book, both versions now, the standard and the Canadian. It's a great system. I really enjoy the system. So I want people to know that you're there and you're available. But let's shift the conversation slightly. Let's talk about you, the man. So rewind to all of this happening. You come to Canada, fell in love with your beautiful wife, and you've got all of these wonderful things happening. You're doing what you do so well. You're interacting with people. You're building the business. Like you said, you're getting great enrollments. And then essentially the rug is pulled out from under you. How was that? Like, what have you been going through as the person? No business talk, but how are you doing, my friend?
Well, thank you for asking. I've been, I think, overall, Marcus, I've been good. But of course, feeling like a roller coaster of emotions. The main challenge I've personally had in the last few weeks, I'd say, is just feeling like I've had the virus myself, and actually just dealing with the health implications of the actual, like either it's the virus or it's like a symptom of maybe the stress and anxiety of the current situation. But I've had some symptoms of shortness of breath and tight chest, and kind of common symptoms of what I think is the virus. So I feel, more or less fully recovered from that. But there was definitely a couple of moments where, there was a couple of moments where it kind of came in waves and bouts where, at one time I thought I needed to go down to ER because I literally, was struggling to breathe and struggling to catch my breath, which was a very uncomfortable kind of feeling. And then strangely enough, that afternoon, it went away and I felt a lot better. So, who knows? This could be just the symptom of being an entrepreneur and having a business and having a whole group of clients to look after, and helping them navigate and taking on the challenge of what they're dealing with. I think as a business owner, as you find out in business, as you realize that ultimately the big reason why your business exists is because you're there to take on the problems and the challenges of your clients, and that can be a heavy burden to carry at the best of times. So,
Right.
In a time like this, it's like you take on all those problems, and it can certainly raise anxiety levels. I'm generally a pretty happy-go-lucky kind of optimistic sort of dude generally. So, like to see the glass half full and fairly optimistic. But I also am the kind of person that worries and cares and feels a bit of anxiety and social anxiety and other bits and pieces too. So I think in this time it's I've personally just been very similar to you, kind of wake up, jump on the computer, get to work, work my way through to the time I go to bed and go to sleep. And that was kind of the rhythm for the first 3 or 4 weeks as soon as this hit. And I think only now I'm starting to take a breath and try to regroup and figure out, okay, based on how we've responded for the first 2 or 3 weeks, to really my first objective, make sure our clients are happy. But now I'm like, okay, how do I personally get back into a bit more of a regular routine and inside the new COVID world that we're living in. And that's things like exercise. I haven't been exercising much at all in the last sort of few weeks. I've been doing some stuff in my living room with some little stretchy bands and some push-ups and whatever else. But frankly, while I've been short of breath, I haven't been able to do a lot as well at the same time. And so just my health, I think, is one thing that I feel has been a little bit neglected in the last few weeks. And then I also haven't seen my partner Jennifer for the last few weeks as well, because as soon as I was a little bit symptomatic, we decided to spend some time apart, and it sort of seems to have stuck around for the last few weeks as well. So it's been about 3 or so weeks since we've seen each other, and as you know, that starts to take a little bit of a toll as well.
Well, I'm sure there's some married men watching right now, and they're kind of like, that sounds fantastic, right? But no, I get it. Yeah, like, I mean, I would miss that too. Everyone likes to have their own space, but 3 weeks away from the one you love is hard. I'm glad you're feeling better. I had no idea, so I'm glad you're feeling better. And you're right. I mean, taking care of our health is more important than anything else, right? Your finances, your customers, your clients, everything depends on your health. And I've always been challenged, and I've been in the process of mastering this, especially the last couple of years, because I'm not as young as I used to be. I used to be able to push harder, longer, that kind of thing. But the month of March for us was essentially triage mode. Like you said, take care of everybody else first. And I started to feel, a little bit of flu-like symptoms. And then you get that paranoia in your head, oh no, and it compounds it, whether it's psychosomatic or whether it's real. And, I pushed through and we got done. And much like you, now I'm like, okay, I need to focus on me first. For me, typically what happens is the sleep. I'll always go to bed at roughly the same time, but I tend to wake up when I am stressed, physical stress, mental stress, emotional stress, right around 3 a.m. And it's one of those things where as soon as my brain turns on, it will not turn off again.
Mm.
So I just get up and start working. And obviously that's not healthy when we're doing long days like this. So I've really been focused on taking care of myself.
Mm.
I've missed the gym as well. I like to lift heavy things. And, you know, I was so, it's choice, but I was so inundated with wanting to help our clients and be that Superman, be that hero and serve them first, that I didn't even realize for about a week and a half I hadn't been working out. So yeah, I grabbed an app off the, you know, off the app store recommended, and I've been on a program now that I'm starting week 3, and it's fantastic. It's probably more challenging in some ways than lifting heavy things, because I got to lift me, and I'm a pretty heavy thing apparently. So it's been good, and it's been helping to get that routine going. Like you said, you know, we're very blessed. My wife and I, we have a rooftop patio. So now that the weather's getting a bit warmer, we can spend a little bit of time outside without risking anyone else, which is great.
Mm.
But yeah, man, like
Mm.
we gotta pull back sometimes. And what do they say? Put the oxygen mask on yourself first before helping someone else, right?
Yeah, yeah, and look, I personally have always struggled with that. I'm very much a, you know, I don't know, type A kind of personality, and I like to, you know, my hierarchy of values are love, business, health, wealth, and adventure. They're the 5 kind of buckets that are most important to me, and I have a habit of filling the business bucket, you know, first, often many times, and the love bucket and the business bucket, you know, kind of compete with one another, and I feel like I find a pretty good balance, but at the same time, it's like, you know, if I'm not spending time with Jen and doing stuff just, you know, for our relationship, then I tend to be working. And you know, health definitely comes in there. I love to work out and exercise, but yeah, my default is always to work. And I don't know, like I've never been able to seem to kind of I don't know whether I want to conquer that, or if I just like I love it. I love what I do, and I love the work that I do, and you know, it gives me a lot of fulfillment and meaning and purpose in life, and so I think there's probably just, you know, it's just peeling back an extra 10-15% away from the work stuff, and I'd be in a much more balanced place. I think many times I feel like you know, where I'm out of balance and I'm spending too much time working, and I think I need to pendulum swing the other way to get more balance. I probably don't. I just need to reel back 10 to 20% away from business and just put it into the other buckets, and it actually feel very evenly balanced across all of them.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. Again, it's something I've always been wired that way, and it's probably why we do what we do, to be honest.
Mm.
But at the same time, yeah, we call it focus, same type of concept as peeling it back. For us, it's not necessarily about saying pulling back from that drive for business, but elevating the priority of the other areas you want to focus on. So you're talking about Jen, you know, making sure that with my wife Farah, instead, you know, we have set work hours, especially right now. And when we
Mm.
hit those set work hours, I say to her, would you like to do something together? And if the answer is no, I'll keep working, but I've elevated her and prioritized her. So she knows that if she's like, you know what? Yeah, actually, let's do something. Then we'll do something, and work can wait because it's always going to be there.
Mm.
Where the
I love
risk,
that.
of
That's
course,
great.
is if I'm not careful, she won't always be there. So it really is a good motivator to elevate. So yeah, we call that just focus.
Mm.
But yeah, and you're right. Like, you're absolutely right. And I need to apply it more myself. We know these things, but knowing and doing, of course, are always 2 different things. And it's not about swinging that pendulum, because I've done that, and then I've built up resentment. Right? You've built up resentment because all you want to do is work, and work is suffering. But hey, the relationship seems to be doing great, and it's like secretly you wish you could have the best of everything. And that I've never mastered that. So you've actually been to my boardroom breakthrough event, and we talk about the 7 different areas of life, and the way we do it is you can only focus on 3 at a time, so choose wisely. So
Mm.
right now, it's definitely, for me, it would be business, health, and my marriage are the 3 areas of focus for me.
Mm.
What about you? What are you focused
Well,
on as of
yeah,
today?
I'd say the same thing. I think that's the beauty of a time like this, is it reminds you that the thing that connects us as human beings is we're so much more similar than we are different. And ultimately, I think we all want a very similar thing out of life. You know, if you when you're in the skin of your own experience of life, you feel like you're incredibly unique, and that your journey is incredibly unique, and that and you know, this is kind of, I'm sure there's a psychological kind of like bias that science has sort of labeled that around, but you know, when I zoom out, I realize that we all want very similar things, and so you know, like along that journey where I can get so sort of caught up in my own head around uh, when I can get so caught up in my own head around my own journey, and the importance of it, and how significant it is, or how significant my problems are compared to other people's problems, or you know, how hard done by I am because I'm dealing with XYZ situation and someone else isn't. That everyone's going through very similar things. We all want the same, very similar things out of life, and so yeah, for me, it just helps kind of step back, get some perspective, recognize that ultimately at the end of my life, all that will really matter is, did I have meaningful work, meaningful relationships? Was I as present as I possibly could? Did I laugh a lot? Did I have a lot of fun? You know, it really doesn't matter. The material trappings, the business success, the size, the scope, all that stuff is ultimately, I feel, irrelevant. Even though my actions don't always map towards that. I think the challenge in life is, how do you map your actions towards that attitude, so that you can still aspire to go out and achieve great things and build a big business and do great stuff along the way, and acquire great possessions along the way and whatever else. But just recognizing that all of that stuff's unimportant, really. Like what's really important is, how do you experience that journey? How do you experience that journey in terms of, you know, what I described? Like, you know, do I feel like, you know, what I'm doing, whether I'm doing something very simple today, or I'm doing something more complex and heroic in the business tomorrow, do I feel like every step of that journey is meaningful work? Do I feel like, you know, I'm having a meaningful impact? Am I having fun? Am I laughing? Am I present in my conversations with you, or with Jen, or whatever it is? And no matter whatever we talk about, it's like I try and step back to, are those principles there? And if the principles are there, then I'll get to the end of my life having led a meaningful life and a happy life, and just being like, that was a great life. If I forget those principles, it doesn't matter what I achieve. I don't think I'd be fulfilled.
Agree with you again. Of course, we're very similar, and this is fun for me because we don't get to have as many open conversations like this. That's one of the luxuries right now of being able to dedicate some time to it. And yeah, we're like, I agree with you. I'll even take it one step further. I mean, the human experience is about relationship, which you said was one of the driving principles. But for me, it's all about relationship, whether it's relationships with your friends, your family, your wife, yourself, your health. Like, all of that is relationship driven, and everything we do and everything you do, all the work, all the time, all the sacrifice, all the woe is me, all of that we do because ultimately we are doing it for better relationships, right? It's not always just about status. The status and everything else is secondary, but subconsciously it's about attracting better relationships, enjoying better relationships, right? You know, some of the freedoms you've experienced over the decades, you've been able to go to different continents. I mean, you fell in love with a woman on the other side of the world. That doesn't happen if you don't push yourself and achieve, right? So there are ends to the means, means to an end, but the end is all about the relationships at the end of the day. And I'm going to use ours for example, because like, you are a beautiful man to me, and I'm glad to call you a friend. And that wasn't the case necessarily, because when we first met, man, what a hilariously awkward story. I actually thought you were another Mike Reid that I knew of. And when I saw the ads come up for Dent, which I'd been introduced to by my friend Levi Sanford at an event he was running, saw the stories with Daniel Priestley. We were showcasing his videos and why they're really effective Facebook ads. And I was like, okay, very cool. And when I ended up talking with one of your team, and they were like, oh yeah, Mike Reid. And I was like, oh, I know Mike Reid, right? Turns out totally different Mike Reid, because obviously there's more than one. But when we met, there's this instant affection for you, this instant kinship. And it wasn't even about business. I don't even think we really talked business in that first conversation. It was more of getting to know the person. And that always goes back to relationship, whether it's business or anything else. It's all a giant mating ritual. You know, who do
Mm,
I want to
mm,
have in my sphere of influence, in my circle of friends?
mm.
And I'm glad that we're like-minded that way. And that's like, for me, this is a really fun conversation because a lot of it sounds not even just my ideas, but even the words. Like we use a lot of the same words and a lot of the same expressions. And it's just, and I'm learning some new things about you I never knew. So thank you so much. I'm having so much fun having you here today.
Pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, but you know what? We will wrap it up. What I wanted to ask you is there any final parting words that you would like to share with our viewers? Just anything you want to just say? You know, today this is what you get to be doing today.
Look, I think I'd probably just echo what I was saying a minute ago, Marcus, which is this will pass, and this turbulent time we're in, and you know, just remember that it's highly likely that you'll get through it, you'll survive, and you'll get to the other side, and you'll be in a position where you know you're no worse off than where you were before, emotionally, energetically, spiritually. You know, you'll and so just I think just recognizing that this is an uncertain time. We're all in this together. We're all dealing with it at the same time. That's the silver lining in what we're going through. And you know, I think just what I'm trying to say here is that don't let fear dictate your decisions. Don't let fear determine, you know, how you move through this. Don't let fear color your experience of the next 6, 12, 18, 24 months. You know, let love, let connection, let you know, turn the negative emotions that you might be feeling around these events and turn them into positive ones. And you know, I promise that your experience of the next 24 months will be radically different the more that you can see the opportunity, you can see the silver lining, and you can see that you know, where everyone else around you is dealing with similar problems, all they want to feel is love, connection, affinity, kinship, and that's all they're craving to feel. And so if you can offer that, if you can spread that, if you can infect people with that positivity, then I think you'll get it back in return, and your whole experience of the next 24 months will be more remarkable than you may think.
Well said. I have nothing to add. So on that, I'll just say thanks again. Have yourself a great day. Take care, everyone. Stay home, stay safe, and stay sane.
Thanks, Marcus.